Good morning and welcome on a really chilly live safari. It is 16 degrees Celsius, about 60 Fahrenheit, although it really doesn't feel like that. We've got an incredible cloud bank above us. It is freezing. We've got a little bit of drizzle this morning, so hopefully the rain stays away. For those of you who are regular viewers, welcome. Always great to have you on the back of the vehicle. For you, if you are new, you are live watching me freeze while trying to find wild animals in Djuma and Arathusa Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands of South Africa. Also, we are interactive, so you can ask us questions about what we're seeing in the bush and everything that's going on. And my name is Brent, and I'm going to be your guide on this vehicle. We have Jandre on camera, and we have Scott and Vim on the other vehicle, and we have Tara and Nikki in final control, and Eugene running around with his broom swatting gremlins. So hopefully the rain stays away. We are going back into the last position where I saw Sindile. Sindile is a young male leopard, just under a year old, and we're going to go see, hopefully he hasn't moved too far overnight, and check what's happening in this area. It has been so cold and dark this morning. I've been driving around with a spotlight during the daytime. Isn't that ridiculous? But we're going to continue on now, and hopefully we have some luck. He provided great entertainment, up and down and running and trying to climb near impossible trees to climb for a bird that's this big. Who knows, maybe his mom has returned to fetch him and she's made a kill somewhere. A dark, windy night like we had last night. Really good for hunting for leopards and lions. Obviously no ambient light, and chuck in a gusting wind makes it very difficult for some of the prey species to avoid being eaten. And you'll notice if this wind persists this morning, a lot of the things that are normally quite relaxed, like impala and kudu and zebra, will be a little bit jumpy. I'm crossing to channel 5. So I'm just going to be on the Game Drive radio for a minute or two, trying to figure out the updates from Arathusa. So the last place we saw Sindile was actually on the boundary between Djuma and Arathusa. Morning stations, Brent from WildEarth. I'll be crossing west, following up on Shadows Montan around M Gowrie Main Junction. Copy, thanks Sid. Last position, he crossed to the west, probably about 100 meters to the north of the signboards. Morning, Doug. How are you?
How are you, Rick?
Good, thanks. Where are you off to in such a hurry?
Yari Bamba on Jen.
Enjoy?
Yeah, you too, guys. Good luck here.
Okay, so the last place we saw Sindile is he crossed this road just after we went off air last night and went into Enjoy?
Yeah, you too, guys. Good luck here.
Okay, so the last place we saw Sindile is he crossed this road just after we went Welcome back, everyone. Apologies for that. Eugene was swatting gremlins with his broom. He seems to have won the battle now. Just a little recap. My name's Brent. We've got Jean-Ray on camera. We've got Scott and VM on the other vehicle. And we've got Tara, Nikki, and Eugene in final control. Welcome. We are live, so we are literally live looking for a young male leopard called Sindile, who we saw on the Sunset Safari yesterday evening. He gave us a really fantastic viewing, chasing little brown birds. And we're going to check around this area. We last saw him just behind us here, and hopefully he is still in the area, and hopefully we'll find him quite quickly. It is a really miserable, well, not miserable, just overcast, cloudy. There was a little bit of drizzle earlier. Hopefully the drizzle stays away, but hopefully we do find a leopard. And it is very dark still. The clouds are really, really, really low this morning. And you'll see I'll be using the spotlight from time to time to look for tracks, because it is that dark. Just trying to make sure he hasn't crossed out at this road. If he hasn't, that leaves him in a very small little area, which should make him a little bit easier to find. It's quite possible he'll be curled in a little ball under one of these bushes in this weather, waiting for his mom to return. There's also obviously a possibility his mom has returned and made a kill somewhere, and will have taken him through to that area to feed. So lots of possibilities. Hopefully all of them lead to us finding him. So if you are a new viewer, welcome. We are interactive, so apart from only being live, you can ask us questions about what we're doing and what we're seeing. And you can do that by emailing us on the email address questions@WildEarthTV, or you can use the hashtag SafariLive if you're on Twitter. So while we continue to search for this young male leopard, we're going to cross across to Scotty, see what he's been up to, and so he can wish you a merry morning.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a windy and cloudy Sabi Sands. I'm sure Brent has already informed you of this, and even that there have been a few spots of drizzle, a few very light raindrops. Thankfully they were very light and have not caused us to seek shelter anywhere. What a beautiful big wilderness we get to explore every day, and this is just a small little piece of it. We are currently heading east down Buffalo's Hook cut line, checking our northern boundary, and my name is Scott. Good to have you with us on safari this morning, and VM is on camera with me. Nikki will be directing the show, as I'm sure Brent said, and Tara lending her a hand. We have been checking our northern boundary from our western side of our property, in the hope that any lion tracks may be coming south into Djuma. There were reports of the Nkuhuma pride of lions basically on the left-hand side of this road last night to the north of us, and they were seen again unsuccessfully attempting to hunt buffalo, and nobody's found any tracks of them yet this morning, but there is a chance we could find their tracks coming back, and there are a lot of other vehicles out exploring both to our left and to our right. So I'm feeling confident that it won't be long until some tracks or animals are found and things start heating up, literally as well as in terms of the sightings. And Brent, as you'll know, is across on Arathusa. I am a little bit jealous. I'm becoming very fond of this young male leopard, Sindile, and it sounded like Brent had an incredible sighting last night, watching him hunt just about anything that moved in front of him. So I'm glad you all got to enjoy that, those of you who were on the sunset safari. For those of you who were not on the sunset safari, Brent did spend a lot of time with. We spent the initial kind of hour and a half of the safari following Tingana, a large male leopard who we saw further to the furthest eastern point we've ever seen him. It's not to say he hasn't moved that far east into Djuma before, but it's the first time we've seen him there. And interestingly, all the guides that actually found him initially just assumed that he was Mvula, the regular dominant male for that area. And that was a little bit of a mistake, and I also fell into that trap, so I'm one of them, because they simply, or we simply assumed it was Mvula because it was in Mvula's territory, but Tingana is now forcing Mvula, and we could get some interaction if we are in the right place at the right time. Who knows, possibly the two of them today are in close quarters with one another, and they will be having some arguments and altercations going forward. So that's a really exciting prospect, and it's been interesting to watch the dynamics change and territories change. Thanks, Viram, for checking down that road. That kind of takes you down towards Nkuhuma Dam. There's signal issues here. Now that we've climbed a little bit higher up out of that dip, it should be much better. So you didn't miss anything there. Now, the tricky thing that we faced this morning is that because it is overcast, there are no tracks, or it's not easy to see tracks without the sunlight being cast from a low angle on them. So I'm trying to use the headlights to help me a little bit, to make sure I don't miss anything. You don't want to be the guy that drives down a road that a whole pride of lion have crossed over and not alert people. And everyone knows that I'm driving this route this morning because we communicate and tell one another what routes we do. Not every single move, but people will know that I'm driving this road. So if we do miss any tracks, I will be dragged over the coals by the other guides. Now, windy conditions like we're experiencing today, combined with overcast conditions, can sometimes lead to it being difficult to find the animals. I don't know where they go and hide, but it can make for tough mornings in terms of finding the animals. But then, on the flip side, some of my most memorable sightings in weather conditions like this. So if you do manage, you can get spoiled with great sightings. It's nice cool weather for predators to move in, and the wind will certainly aid them in their hunting. If it was a dead still day, whatever they try and creep up to, we'll be able to hear them coming and also more easily be able to see them. Whereas if the wind's blowing and the grass is both moving and making a noise, the approach of a predator will become a lot more difficult to detect. Well, Brent must feel that he's getting close to Sindile, this young male leopard that he's busy trying to track down. and he's actually just got off the vehicle to explore on foot, and it can be very useful to be off the vehicle exploring on foot, provided you know what you're doing. You can cover ground more easily. That's thicker than obviously traveling down the road, so it's more easy than taking a vehicle off-road. Your senses become more heightened as soon as you step off the vehicle, and your hearing and sight will really prick up because of the potential dangers and excitement. So that heightened sense of awareness that he will now be feeling as he stalks through the bush, looking at the sign of Sindile, is really a magical feeling, and I can't stress enough, if you ever do come out on safari, to try and sign up for even a short walk, even if it's just for half an hour, just to go and explore Africa on foot. It really does get the heart racing, and that's what Brent's up to. So he's obviously got to a point where he feels confident that he's getting close, and now it's time to start fine combing. The road we've just turned off onto now will lead us down to the Buffalo's Hook waterhole, and we'll be there in just a minute. So I'm not expecting too much action there. Hopefully we'll be pleasantly surprised, but it's not quite warm enough yet for animals to be coming down to drink. But the wonderful thing about being out here is we simply don't know what will happen. Even though there are kind of likely scenarios that may unfold due to weather and the time of day at any given point in the reserve, like the waterholes for example, the animals do not follow a life of routine, and that is why they can often pleasantly surprise us with where we find them and what we see them doing. Well, for those of you who were on yesterday's sunset safari, when we were following Tingana, we had to cross through quite a narrow but steep little riverbed, and while we were doing so, sadly Brian, due to my driving, bumped his head on the antenna that sends you the broadcast. So he's okay, and a lot of you are wondering if he is still okay. He's probably just not as bright and sharp as he used to be, but he can still walk around, and he can still operate, and he just has a little bit of a lump on his head. So he's okay, and he's actually got the morning off. He's resting, and he's absolutely okay. I just got a little bit of a fright when I turned around to check if everything was okay, and I saw him clutching his head. I didn't actually know what had hit him or what had happened. I just knew that we needed to give him some time not to focus on being on camera, and it was actually quite a tough one, because as soon as you cut across back to Brent, I was forced with obviously my concern for Brian, but I was also simultaneously concerned with the leopard that was continuing to disappear into some thick bush. But thankfully he said, no, we must carry on, and he just needed some time to regroup, but he thankfully did. So just carry on, stay with the leopard, and that shows how committed he is to the show. Now, at first glance, as expected, the Buffalo's Hook waterhole appears to have no visitors yet. That could, and I'm almost certain will, change during the day. But there is one animal that's hiding on the far bank, so VM can take you for a closer look. It's not going to be a great visual, but right on the water's edge you'll see a little white dot, and that is part of an Egyptian goose. And interestingly, it's on its own. Usually you see them in... Oh no, it's not. Sorry. There we go. I am still waking up this morning. Thank you, VM. VM actually, as you can see, spotted both of them, and that's why he's got them both perfectly framed. I was so focused on the one on the left that I didn't even realize there was also one on the right. So there we go. They are in their usual pair, and they are taking a slow start to the morning. Oh, guess what, Vim? Now, we just got a interesting scenario here. We need to take a closer look around. I've heard some noises, and I think there could be something up ahead of us. Somewhere in this bush, if you just help me. I'm not sure what it is that I heard, but I did hear something. Could have almost been like a growl, something a bit cat-like. Maybe VM spotted something there. No,
God, can you see something?
no, I'm not sure. I don't know what's going on. Oh, there we go. What's that? Well, we were very, very wrong in our assumptions that nothing would be here. And even though you can't see it clearly, there is a lion. So let's take you a little bit closer and see which pride it is, see who else is here. We've got lucky, and what a pleasant surprise this is. Now there may be a little dip in signal as we go through this little donga below us. Just going to update the game drive stations quickly, or we'll get in there and find out who it is first. The Nkuhuma pride. Stop here for a second, Vim, just for a nice low angle, or we are just going to stop in this relatively awkward position to start with, because it'll give us some great low angles on the Nkuhuma pride. So take a closer look and enjoy. Nkuhuma's lying up Buffalo's Hook Dam. And it really does make such a difference being at a lower angle. That's why I thought I'd just make the most of this opportunity. Whoever would like to come to the sighting can please control standbys. I'm going to be radio down unless they move. We are on the southeastern side of the dam wall. Well, isn't this great? He certainly looks quite full-bellied, so they may have been successful last night, and he will be able to feed on more meat than any other members of this pride, and that's because he's bigger and stronger than the rest of them, so he can outcompete them at kills. And he's gone to join the rest of the ladies. He's a young male, and I'm glad you got to see him pacing across the screen. He's one of the sons born into this pride, so not a dominant male. And he could be expected to be kicked out by his fathers very shortly. Oh no, we just got a whiff of their dung. as the wind swirled towards us. It's not very pleasant smelling lion dung. Just got a question through from Renosters, and obviously you tuned into the fact that we had a little bit of rain or drizzle earlier, and you'd like to know if we could expect any serious rain at this time of the year. It's highly unlikely that we will get any decent rain. Our summer months provide us with the best rainfall, and we could therefore expect our next decent rains in probably October will be the earliest we could expect decent rains, or maybe November, December and January are usually our highest rainfall months. So it's quite surprising that we've got a bit of drizzle this morning, and it's going to continue to be dry for a few more months. Well, I wonder what they managed to catch last night. Look at how relaxed all of them are. Full-bellied, cool weather, perfect conditions for lions. Siberia Zumi. Good to know you're watching, and they would like to know, what is the strangest animal I've ever seen an apex predator kill and feed on? Well, I'm going to have to think a little bit about lion. Nothing's popping into my filing cabinets now, or popping out of my filing cabinets now with an interesting lion kill. But I've once seen a female leopard here in the Sabi Sands eat 3 tiny newborn chicks out of a nest. They were probably only an inch or 2 long. They were tiny little chicks, and she ate them out of their nest that was kind of eye level with her, low in a tree, as if eating little sweets out of a bowl. So that was a surprise to see. Tiny little morsels that she made the most of. This pride of lion, interestingly enough, one of them killed and ate a tortoise shortly after being shown up by an unsuccessful buffalo hunt at Vuyatela Dam. Some of you were there with us. Both Brent and myself were in that sighting, and a poor tortoise got caught in the crossfire afterwards. And it's important to know that predators will feed on just about anything they can overpower, so you can see them eating some very strange things. Sadly though, I can't seem to think of anything else bizarre that I've seen lion feed on. But hopefully something will come back to me, Siberia Zumi. And that is a very content lion belly. You'll notice that the lioness don't seem to have fed on as much, and that's because he would have bullied them out of getting the easy to eat parts of the meal. Okay, folks, well, I'm sure all of you are wondering how Brent is doing on his tracking exercise, and while these lions doze here, we'll send you across to him for a quick update.
Welcome back, everyone. As you can see, our endeavors in the search for Sindile have been successful. So I went around, I couldn't find any tracks of him moving too far from this area, so I went for a little walk, and I was walking probably about 4 meters from this termite mound, and I spotted him, and all he did was flatten himself against the termite mound. And when you're tracking leopard on foot, leopard rely a lot on camouflage, so you look at him, I've seen him now, and then I just kept walking past at that distance, pretending I hadn't seen him, and he did not move, and I went back and fetched John in the vehicle, and here we are with Sindile. And great here, we're having a feline morning, even though the weather's a bit iffy. Oh, John, check it out quickly. Look at this. There's a really incredible little gap. Hopefully it's the sign of things to come. But there's just one patch of blue in this dark, ominous sky. And you can see there might be a few little spots on the lens, and it is raining a little bit. We're hoping that it doesn't get much harder than this, and it stays away. So, obviously, Shadow has not returned yet. Who knows, maybe she was successful in her hunts. He's heard something. I think it could be Cedric coming to join us. I wonder how much of a busy night he had running around chasing birds. I wonder if he had any success. It doesn't look like it. And he was chasing the wrong type of birds for a leopard. Tiny little cisticulars that are no longer than about 4 centimeters, and they were very high up in quite little trees. So I think it would have been very difficult for him to actually catch anything. Sorry guys, I just have to listen to the game drive radio for a second till Cedric gets here, and then I will hand over control of the sighting to him. Good morning, Purple Rain. Welcome back on the vehicle. Always great to have a question from you. Purple Rain would like to know, do I know where the Anderson male leopard is? I'm afraid I do not. I might be able to get an update from Cedric when he arrives. Maybe he's heard something. So we'll try to find out for you, Purple Rain. Looks like he's heard something across the termite mound. But he looks as uncomfortable in the cold as I do. You can see in a very regal leopard pose. And we can see his right spot pattern nice and clearly there. So on the right he's got 3. The spot pattern I'm referring to is that the first line of spots above the whiskers. So you can see a very distinct 3 spots there on his right as he turns. And you can see he's all fluffed up from the cold. So guys, just hang on, Cedric's about to arrive, so I just need to chat to him quickly, and then I'll be back with you. And I'm just going to hand over control of the sighting to him. Said I've got your visual, keep coming. Station is handing over control of Shadow, the sighting Shadow's Montoine to Cedric. Okay, back with you. Well, good morning, Jody and Christy. Welcome on this very cool and sunrise safari. And it is a sunrise safari full of kitty cats. The Nkuhumas with Scarlet Buffalo's Hook and Sindile here with me on Harathusa. So, two questions there. So someone says he looks a bit hungry. And he is not too bad though. And then the next one is, does he just wait there for his mom? He will move around quite a bit in this general area where he has been left waiting for his mom, and he'll be waiting for her to come and fetch him and take him to a kill, hopefully. He will try kill small things like dwarf mongoose and whatever else he might be able to find, and he's not nearly yet at an age where he's going to become independent. He's still going to be very reliant on his mother for a while yet. Although young male leopards have been recorded becoming independent at around a year old. Generally in this area, it's about 2 years to actually even 2.5, 3 years sometimes. And it also just depends on the individual mother. So I'm just gonna, beg you on, try reposition the vehicle in a little bit, just to give the other guys a chance to have a good view as well. Morning, Zed. Good, thanks. So while we're going to reposition to give the other guys a good chance to have a look, we're going to cross across to Scotty, who's with the Nkuhuma Pride, and we'll be back with you a little later in the show.
Well, very well done to Brent in pulling off what he set out to do this morning, and that was to find Sindile. It's not an easy job, so very, very well done to him. And what a beautiful leopard you've been looking at. We've repositioned the vehicle to get a different angle on two lionesses that we couldn't see too well from where we were initially parked. And again, we've got a great, great low angle. We're shooting from eye level with them. And look at the size of her paws. Isn't this an awesome angle to see? And we got lucky this morning. Thankfully we didn't have to track them down. It was sheer fluke that we bumped into them, but we'll bank that, because sometimes you need luck on your side out here. Marianne has noticed that they all have a pinkish tinge on their chests and necks. And could that be from feeding recently? It certainly could be. And they all look quite full-bellied. I think they killed something of a medium size, possibly a kudu, or possibly two smaller animals, because they've all had a decent meal but are not extremely full-bellied. Wouldn't it be wonderful to know what exactly they did catch and how that whole event unfolded? Good to know that they were successful though, because earlier on in the night they were seen in a failed buffalo hunt, but that was early on, probably 12 hours ago. And they obviously managed to find something else between then and now. Look at the little foot twitching as if it's got some earphones plugged in as if it's listening to music. That's awesome. I wonder what song it's singing away to itself. So thanks for sending that through, Marianne, and it's really great when you do send through observations. Quite often you will detect things before we do, and it's great when you alert us to that, so thank you. There's some Aramark babblers calling off in the distance. You may have heard some go-away birds quang, letting off a few calls earlier, and the bush is slowly coming alive now that it's warming up. A lot of the animals out here will take some time to adjust to or from the cold evenings. Not these lion though, they'll be loving this cool weather. Safari Hayes would like to know, or my thoughts on the fact that she said, thank goodness I didn't get out to track in case, you know, because these lions were just around the corner. And yes, I guess it is a bit of a blessing in disguise, but more for the lion than for me. My experience with this pride of lion, when we do find them on foot, they often tend to run off, and they've never been confrontational towards me. I'm sure that could change, and we must be very cautious of falling into a false sense of security when you do become used to any given animal, because they are wild, and at any moment they could snap and feel pressured, and when they feel pressured and feel like their life or other pride members' lives are in danger, they may charge. In this scenario, because it's very open, I think they would have just seen me and probably run off a few meters before lying down and resting again. So I don't think it would have been an issue had they have seen me on foot, and it is important to remember that a lot of the times we actually find animals is when we are off on foot looking for them. So provided you know how to react to any given animal, and there are slightly different behavioral things that you should do when you do see animals. One example of which is when you come across lions on foot, it's best to maintain eye contact with them, whereas leopards, you kind of need to look at them out the corner of your eye and just make sure that you've got them in your periphery. So that's important to know. Take a close look down here. Some of the go-away birds that arrived earlier have come down to drink. And you can just see their heads poking out of the water's edge there. And we got lucky. I arrived here, and a few minutes before arriving said that I expect there to be nothing here. And then I only spotted one of the two Egyptian geese. Thankfully VM was on top of things, and he got both of them framed perfectly. And while we were looking around, I noticed the one lioness lying behind a bush and got extremely excited initially, but then I think VM did a great job in building up a little bit of suspense before revealing who we had found. There's also some Birchall starlings calling now, and further off to the right, also along the water's edge, are some Egyptian geese that we saw from a much longer distance earlier, and they are very pretty birds. So it might be worth taking a close look, as it looks like they begin to acquire their morning breakfast. They'll feed mainly on aquatic plant matter as well as grass, so they're not strictly reliant on aquatic matter, but will also feed on grass along the banks of any rivers or waterholes. James would like to know if we see any true geese in South Africa, because this is actually a duck. And well done, James, that is correct. And yes, we do indeed see true goose or geese in South Africa. The spur-wing goose is one of them. It's a mighty, mighty goose, probably 2 times the size of these individuals. And what I'll do is I'll just get a picture in the book for you. There is a very small chance we could see some here in the Sabi Sands. We do see them from time to time, but not very commonly. And that pygmy goose, I think, is also a true goose that we do have a very slight chance of seeing. Aren't they wonderful to watch? Flying, something I'd always love to be able to do, but swimming like a duck, just plonking into the water, floating perfectly and paddling away with your feet must also be a very, very nice feeling. Well, it looks like one lioness is looking very closely towards those Egyptian geese, but I just want to show you a spur-wing goose quickly. And then we will send you across to the lion. So the spur-wing goose is right up at the top here. And it is double the size and weight of the Egyptian goose. And the reason why it's called the spur-wing goose is the picture doesn't show it, but on the corner of its wing they've got a very sharp spur made out of cartilage that they will use for fighting. And it can be sometimes an inch long, really big spur. And we do sometimes see them flying over. We could potentially see them here one day. The comb duck we also have a small chance of seeing here, or knob-billed duck was its previous name. Good, James, thanks for pointing that out. And let's take a closer look at this lion. It's got its head up. I wonder what it can see. Possibly something's coming down to the waterhole for a drink that it's seen. And even though they are full-bellied and it looks like they did have a successful night hunting last night, that is not to say that they will not take any opportunities that come towards them this morning. You can see by the way she's shifting her head, there is something up ahead there. Now, Casey would like to know what is the proper reaction for a lion charge. You typically want to stand your ground. That is first and foremost, and also maintain eye contact. It can also sometimes bode in your benefit to shout and make a noise, wave your arms high in the air, making yourself look bigger. And if you're in a group, it's best to stick together, because then you become one unit and one force to be reckoned with, and the lion will just see one large mass that it would think twice about jumping onto. So standing your ground is critical. If you try and run from lion or just about any other animal out here, not only will you give them the impression that they are stronger than you and on top of the scenario, but they will also have their natural chase mechanism triggered. And most importantly, everything out here is faster than us. Every single mammal basically that we see will be faster than us. There may be one or two that aren't, but hippo, elephant, buffalo, lion, impala, ostrich, and anything else you can think of will catch you. It's just a matter of time. So running from an animal means you're just going to be out of breath when they kill you. So it's not something I would suggest. And by standing your ground, you overpay, you counter-react what animals will usually do when encountered by them, and that makes them think twice about committing to a full attack. There will come a time, though, when you do need to back up and give the lion some space, but it needs to be done slowly and whilst you're facing forwards towards them. You don't want to turn your back to them, you always want to keep facing them, and very slowly, almost moonwalk backwards, because you do want to extract yourself from the dangerous situation, but it needs to be done very slowly. Each scenario, though, is very different, and it's difficult when training up-and-coming guides as to what exactly to do in any given scenario, because there are always different variables that could play out, and that's also important to remember. Good question, though, and it really is a rush. It's not something we want to force upon the lions, but from time to time, when looking for them, you may startle them and get a little bit of a charge, or it could simply be one pride that is notorious for being more aggressive to us on foot. The Ottawa pride, which is a pride of lions that I viewed that still occurred to the south of us in the Sabi Sands, are a pride that back when I was spending time with them 3 or 4 years ago, they were extremely aggressive on foot, and basically every time we tracked them we would know and expect a charge. What have you seen up there? She's still staring very intently, so possibly a small antelope coming down to drink. We can't see from the angle where we're at. Debbie, thanks for sending your question through. And Debbie has noticed Sindile yawning just before you came across to us, and also that lion will very often roar. And what does that mean? Is it a display of their teeth, or is it simply to show that they're a little bit sleepy? Well, yes, I think it's more than a display, or it's not often a display of their size and strength. So unlike hippo, who will open their mouth very wide to display their huge teeth, lion aren't doing it for that reason. I think it's, like you say, sleepiness, but also it's very often done just before they get up. And a yawn is basically a very big or deep breath which allows more oxygen to get into your body, and that is why we do yawn. When we're feeling tired and sleepy, our body's natural trigger is to yawn. Therefore, try and increase the oxygen intake into your body and get you a little bit more active. And that's why quite often with the big cats, if we see them lying down and then they begin to yawn, possibly 2 or 3 times, it's often a very good indicator that they will get up and move. Now let's take a close look here, because while we've been chatting I didn't notice one did get up and move, and it could well have yawned beforehand. So sadly we missed that. That would have been perfect timing. But let's take a close look at the one that's left here. Because it has been left alone, I'm guessing it may get up and join the rest of the pride. And before it does that, let's see if it yawns. Oh, look at her body language. What is going on there? Hello. What have you seen? We'll give it a few moments and then possibly creep forward to see if we can see what it is she's looking at. But where we parked, judging by the angle that she's looking at, we wouldn't be able to see whatever it is. There's too many thick bushes between us and there. My predictions are that this lioness is going to realize she's been left alone by the other one and let off one or two yawns and possibly retreats, although she does seem captivated by whatever it is she's seen. Look at those eyes. Okay, well, I do just want to give it another minute or so to see if we don't get a yawn and then a movement from her. I think what's distracting her from moving to the rest of the pride is whatever she has seen up ahead. Well, Janet is interested to know if what we've just been discussing regarding yawning and it being a common display or behavioral movement before big cats get active, is that also applicable for dogs? And yes, to a degree. I've noticed wild dogs are similar to that, and also hyena. I've also even seen warthogs in the morning waiting to exit their burrow yawning. That's a hilarious yawn to see, because they can only open their mouth such a narrow gap, but you can see them yawning away. It's one of my favorite things to actually see out here, and sadly I haven't been able to share it with you before, but seeing a warthog yawn is really interesting. And again, it was early morning while they're waking up, trying to get more oxygen into their body. But it certainly is applicable with most of the predators we see out here. Carolina in Santa Monica. What would happen if we were to give a very slow blink to a lion? Now I'm assuming this is when we are on foot, as this is a subject we've been discussing this morning. If you come across a lion on foot and you're giving them a stare down and you do a long slow blink, what would happen? I'm not too sure, but whoever is willing to do a long slow blink when a lion is under attack or thinking about attacking you deserves a trophy for bravery, because it is not something you would want to do. It would be horrifying. So I'm not too sure what would happen in that scenario. It could induce them to attack because they've noticed that you are short-circuiting essentially, but it's a scenario that I've never experienced. It is believed, I've heard, with people with domestic cats though, that a long slow blink is behavior relating to affection, and if your cat does give you a long slow blink, it's kind of telling you how much it loves you. I think that is not necessarily false, and it could very well be true, but that's different in that you've bonded with that domestic cat to a degree of friendship or a relationship, you could say, even though it is human animal. even though we spend time with these animals, we don't bond with them and cuddle with them, so I doubt a long blink will convey the same message. Well, this is great. We've got a lioness in the foreground with those beautiful yellow eyes, and in the tree in the background we've got a Burchell starling. So two very beautiful animals here at Djuma, one feathered, one furry, but great to have them in the same shot. Yesterday we had a leopard and an elephant in the same shot, so it seems like Mother Nature is providing us with some great combo deals at the moment. Well, there's some bad news, folks, and it sounds like Brent may have lost Sindile, but he'd like to tell you about what's happened and give you an update on what his next plans are. So we will see you all a bit later.
Welcome back, everyone. We're still sitting here with this young male leopard. He's just heard a little bird alarming and he's picked up his head. Obviously at this age he's very, very curious. As we saw last night, he was chasing testiculars around and around with very little success. He's got a nice high vantage point up on this termite mound. So if any predators like a hyena or a lion were to come, or another male leopard, he would hopefully see or hear them first and be able to make his escape. At the moment it looks like he's trying to avoid the cold as much as I am. Except I'm lucky enough to have a blanket, and he is not. Morning, Nora. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari, Nora. Nora would like to know if it had been shadow that I walked into and not this little guy, would she have been as calm on foot? Probably, Nora. He was quite well hidden when I first saw him, even though I was quite close. Most leopards will try sort of flatten themselves to the ground on foot as long as you don't sort of make it obvious that you've spotted them. And walked past, although certain leopards do tend to slink away. I have seen Shadow slink away from us on foot before, but so far I don't think so. I think Shadow would have probably reacted very, very similarly to what he did. Morning, Norman from Sohab. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari, Norman. Norman said, obviously, we've all heard about that guide who was mauled by a leopard in the Kruger Park recently. And You'd like to know why the leopards in the Sabi Sands seem so calm in comparison to the leopards in the Kruger. Well, Norman, the Kruger is a very different type of area. Kruger is what you would call high-density, low-income ecotourism. So you have lots of people paying a little bit, whereas Sabi Sands is what you would call low-density, high-income. So one of the reasons that our animals stay so relaxed is we put never more than 3 vehicles into a sighting. So obviously that is to remove any pressure that these animals might feel from the vehicles. Where there's Kruger, it is it's a public place, it's a national park. You can have 20 vehicles in a sighting. I've seen very, very relaxed leopards in Kruger, just as relaxed as the ones in the Sabi Sands. That particular leopard had been in a fight and was very badly injured, and so the behavior was abnormal rather than normal. And it's just one of those things. And in an area where you have that many vehicles traversing every day, unfortunately, sometimes there are going to be accidents, even though they are very, very seldom. The other thing is a lot of leopards in the Kruger aren't relaxed because vast sections of the Kruger are not open to the public, so those leopards never see cars or people, so they tend to react very differently and tend to be very shy and slink away from the vehicles in the park. In your main tourist areas like around Skakuza and Lower Sabi and Satara, the leopards there are just as relaxed as they are here in the Sabi Sands. Oh, tired kitty. Seems like after all the action we saw him doing last night, he's been quite lazy this morning. Probably had a busy night of chasing testiculars. Purple Rain asked a little earlier about the Anderson male and if we had any updates on him. I got an update from Cedric a little bit earlier. The last time the Anderson male was seen was just to the south of us in a property called Shirley's. So he is around, but he's not in our Travis area at the moment. Good morning, Lisa. Welcome on this sunrise safari, even though it is quite a chilly one with no sun. Lisa would like to know what would happen if he would come across one of these older males at the moment. So the 3 males we've been seeing, or I have not been lucky enough to see the Anderson male yet. Lisa would like to know what would happen. Well, I'm pretty sure Tingana probably thinks that this is his progeny, so Tingana would probably just ignore him. I'm not sure whether Shadow mated with Mvula as well before this was born. Sean's nodding his head, giving me some information from across there. So Mvula would probably also consider this to be his progeny, so Mvula and Tingana he'd be quite safe with. However, I think if the Anderson male had to come across, he would try to kill him. And this is probably the reason we think Shadow's been moving further and further into Djuma and Voyatela, which is Mvula's territory, and where Tingana is now pushing Mvula. And it's probably to avoid the Anderson male while this guy is still of an age that he would be killed, and he would definitely be killed by the Anderson, because if the Anderson male were to kill him, it would immediately get a shadow to come into estrus again. And as we were discussing that really interesting new data, that female leopards and female lions will quite often, once they have had sort of a territory takeover, they will come into a false estrus, and they will actually mate with these new males, but not actually ever get pregnant from it. And only the second estrus in about 3 months' time would they actually get pregnant from. And they think this is a sort of a defense mechanism to make sure that these new males that they're mating with are actually going to hang around and keep territory. So I hope you guys are getting some great screenshots here. He is posing quite nicely, even though the light isn't so wonderful. But it is always amazing to be able to spend such quality time with these animals. Hi, John from sunny California. Hopefully you're having a sunnier day than we are. John would like to know, he said he's just heard that Anderson had a battle with Lamula to the west of us, and he came out victorious. So he's wanting to know whether him pushing now further into Tingana's territory, is it just him trying to enlarge his territory? Most definitely. Obviously, from a male leopard's point of view, the larger the territory they control with the more females in it, the more of his DNA he'll be able to spread. So that is obviously his first prize. He is trying to extend his gene line, so he'll want to mate and sire as many cubs as possible within the territory. So really interesting time now with all the different movements of male leopards at the moment. And yesterday we saw Tingana further east than we've ever seen him before, very much deep into what is traditionally called Mvula's territory. Hi, Gilly from Milwaukee. Thanks for another question. Gilly said that this little guy seems a little bit nervous today. Is it from vehicles and whatnot? Most definitely not, Gilly. We see him so often. He is so relaxed. It's this gusting wind, so he's unable to sometimes hear or smell where a potential threat comes from. So most animals will be a little bit more nervous in this gusting wind. So it's got nothing to do with us being here. We're not having any effect. As you can see, he's fast asleep on top of that termitaria. Hi, Lois in Buffalo, New York. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari. Lois would like to know how to spell Sindile. It is S-I-N-D-I-L-E. S-I-N-D-I-L-E. And from now, we're going to take you from one flat cat to a slightly larger flat cat with Scotty, and we'll be back with you a little later in the show.
Welcome back, everyone. And it seems like the cats that both Brent and myself have found this morning are in a very sleepy mood. But thankfully we've got this one individual who's lifting her nose up into the wind, smelling the air for any potential signs or clues. You can see she's almost drinking it in. Interesting to note that Sindile is a bit nervous this morning, but again, just like I was saying earlier, how the wind can benefit predators in muffling their approach as they may stalk their prey, it will also make certain predators, like a young male leopard, feel uneasy because he won't know if he's being stalked by anything. Well, one happy family having a snooze. We probably won't spend too much longer here. It's a tricky one though, because there is a chance that something could come and they could try and catch it, which is something we would like to show you and like to be a part of, or spectate at least. But when that may happen, we can't be sure. So we're probably gonna head off and see what other action we can find. I can't resist going to look for any sign of Tingana or Mvula. But we will spend a little bit longer here, answer a few more questions, and then head off and see what other animals are out there. Well, we've got a question through from Tula, and that's a name I haven't heard before, so good to have you on board, and thanks for sending your question through. Tula has noticed that these lion all look fit and healthy and also quite young, and would like to know, what age are they? Well, they are varying ages. There's 2 older lionesses, who I think are the core of this pride, and 3 slightly younger ones that are coming into the age now where they should be sexually mature. So there should be 5 sexually mature lionesses quite shortly within this one. They are probably between 7 and 10 years old, and the 3 that are coming into sexual maturity will just be approaching 4. Their brother Junior, a young male, also from a similar litter, I believe, so also around 3.5, 4 years old, approaching 4 years, and then 2 much smaller sub-adults, which are about 1.5 years old. So a mixed batch, but 8 lions in total. This is the young male who's just poked up his head. And you're right, Tula, they certainly are looking fit and healthy and strong. Oh, a little sneeze there. There's a lot of dust around at this time of year, as well as grassies that may get into the nose. Oh, look at that. Maybe I'll let off another yawn where he'll display his teeth for us. Or is it a fur ball that he may be wanting to get rid of? Let's watch closely here. Well, now that we've got such a tight angle on his nose, it's going to be a great opportunity to wanting to know if pink noses help you to assume the age of an animal or determine the age of the animal. And yes, to a degree, the general rule is that younger lion and leopard will have pink noses and they will become darker as they become older. But it's no guarantee, and you do sometimes get some older lioness as well as leopard who do have pink noses. So it can be used as a rough guide, but there's no strict rules confirming that. Ooh, you can see that lioness picked up her head very quickly behind him. But again, in these windy conditions, she could have just heard a rustle of the leaves blowing in the wind that got her alert. In these cloudy conditions, you can see these lions are very, very relaxed and comfortable. They are also full-bellied, which is something we need to factor into their equation. But Brer would like to know, how do temperatures affect lion? And they can tolerate very cold temperatures, from what I've seen, and are typically more comfortable in cooler weather. So it's more likely for us to see them active during the daylight hours in our winter months, whereas in summer, unless they've got a very good opportunity to hunt something that may stumble upon them as they sleep during the day, they will typically not move during most of the daylight hours because it's extremely hot and humid here, and most animals will prefer to move at night. And it kind of makes perfect sense for them with their ability to see very well in the dark and therefore hunt successfully under cover of darkness. It goes hand in hand with keeping cool during the day and having good hunting opportunities in the dark. So temperature certainly does play a role on them. But it's important to remember that Africa has got many varying climates that lion will occur in, and like I say, they can withstand very cold environments as well as very hot environments, but their activity will alter depending on the temperature, and typically they will not be active when it's hot. Best part, and it's not really about taste, it's more about getting to a part of the carcass that is most easy to consume. Now, depending on where they are on the feeding process, that will alter. Quite often the hind quarters muscles on a lot of the animals, the back legs providing with the most power for animals to run and move, so you'll often find the rump is one of the best places to initially be. But you do also get other parts of the carcass that may be favorable for the lion to feed on easily and therefore consume time. And depending on, like I say, how much they've fed on the kill and how much meat is left, he will move around that carcass, chasing the other lion off and getting to whichever part of the kill he feels he can consume the most of. So that's typically the case with lion, but like I said, it will depend on the individual animal that they've killed and that animal's anatomy. But quite often it's the rear end that is the easiest part to start consuming the most of. And hopefully one day we'll actually get to see these lion bring down an animal and then compete, because we've yet to see that. And the only way we'll find out exactly what he's doing and exactly how much he's overpowering the rest of the pride will be when we get to see it live. Let's take one last look at these lion, and I'm guessing we'll then head off. Sindile still hasn't moved a muscle, so you will be joining me when we do head off in search of other animals. Well, the great thing about these got good prospects for the evening. Once they've digested a little bit of whatever they've caught last night, they will be more inclined to move and potentially show us some more action. But right now I can't help but feel we may be missing out on something else that's happening here at Djuma. So let's head off into the area where we last had Tingana yesterday, and maybe we'll get to see some male leopards interacting. Well, thank you Nkuhuma Prize for pleasantly surprising us with your presence here at Buffalo's Hook Dam. I love being proved wrong by the animals, especially when I made a prediction that nothing would be here, arrived, confirmed that nothing was here, and then after further inspection realized there was a lion lying just a few meters away from us. So, a great surprise, and let's see what other surprises are waiting for us.